All right, we're live, Chair.
Thank you. We'll try again. Welcome, everyone. I will now call to order the August 28th, 2024 meeting of the Nevada Local Justice Reinvestment Coordinating Council. Good afternoon. It's good to see all of you, and welcome to those who are viewing the meeting on the Department of Sentencing Nevada Local Policies YouTube channel. This is our fourth meeting of our 2023 to 2025 meeting cycle. I will now ask
Thank you, Chair. Michael Chop. Dimar Dahl. I saw him earlier. He's here. I'm going to mark him here. Bill Ferguson. Dylan Frainer.
Present.
Mackenzie Hilton. She did check in and say she would be joining later. Clinton Hohenstein.
Hi, this is Clint.
Thank you. Brenda Ingram.
Present.
Eric Kern.
Present.
Chelsea Mazza.
Present.
William McCurdy. Julia Murray.
Here.
James Phoenix. Garrett Pruitt.
Present.
Dorothy Rowley.
Present.
Stephen Rye. Bryce Shields. Clinton Zenz. I see him present, so I will mark him present. Chair Bird.
Present.
Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, I will now open agenda item number 2. This will be the first period of public comment. There are 2 periods of public comment, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end. Members of the public have 2 options for submitting public comment. First, members of the public may do so in writing by emailing the Department of Sentencing Policy at sentencingpolicy@ndsp.nv.gov. Public comment received in writing will be provided to the council and be included by reference in the minutes of the meeting. Members of the public who wish to testify may do so by telephone. Due to time constraints, public comment will be limited to 2 minutes. Any member of the public that exceeds the 2-minute limit may submit your comments in writing to the Department of Sentencing Policy. Callers, as a reminder, please mute the device on which you are watching the meeting. All sound will come through your telephone. At this time, I will ask staff to manage and direct those who wish to testify by phone. Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Members of the public who would like to testify by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. When it's your turn to speak, press *6 to unmute, then please slowly state and spell your first and last name. And we have no one who would like to participate in public comment.
All right, thank you, Hunter. I will close the first period of public comment. Moving on to agenda item number 3, members of the council have been provided copies of the minutes from the May 29th corrections to these minutes. Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the May 29th, 2024 meeting.
So for some reason.
Motion to approve. Second.
I'm sorry, can you please identify with the connections and echo? So I couldn't tell who was speaking.
Sorry, CJ Zen's Knight County, motion to approve.
Dylan Frainer, Lincoln County, second.
Thank you. So we have CJ Zen's motion to approve and seconded by Dylan Frainer. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, I will now open agenda number 5. Wait, my pages got moved. Sorry. Agenda number 4, grant discussion. This is the culmination of what we have been working towards. The council was created to determine a need in our local communities and to grant funds to assist with those in need to curb recidivism. AB 388 in the 2023 session gave us $3 million to allow us to begin to fulfill this mission. The Nevada Department of Sentencing Policy has been working to get the funds out the door, and we will now hear from staff regarding the result of all of our work up to this point.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen at this time. All right, can I just confirm that you guys can see my screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So good afternoon. I'm Marie Bledsoe. I'm a management analyst with the Nevada Department of Sentencing Policy, and I'm going to be walking the council through the Nevada Local Justice Reinvestment Grant Awards for 2024. What we will cover is an overview of the grants that were awarded in rounds 1 through 6, a look at the funding distribution across the state. Then we will take a deeper dive into what was funded. We will look at the future reporting NDSP will provide to the council, and hopefully the council will have additional ideas of what you would like NDSP to report on. And finally, we will wrap up by thanking the council members who assisted in this process. Let's start with rounds 1 and 2 of the grant, which was from March 15th through April 26, 2024. A quick reminder about the chronology of this grant. The award period opened March 15th and was originally supposed to close April 12th. In that period, we only received 5 grant applications for a total of about $450,000 in state funding requests. This was well short of the $3 million that was available, so the Department of Sentencing Policy created 5 more grant rounds and reopened the grant application period. Grant applications were received at 2-week intervals through June 21st, 2024. So in round 1, we received 5 grant applications as mentioned, and in round 2, we didn't receive any grant applications. So in round 1, the Peer Review Committee, or PRC, chose 3 applications for funding. They were the nonprofit Partnership Douglas County in Douglas, Lyon County Human Services in Lyon County, and Humboldt County Human Services in Humboldt County. So in this graph, the first column, the awarded dollar amount, is the state amount plus whatever required match there was. The state amount column is the amount taken from the $3 million that was available. Then in the case of 2 governmental entities, there was a required 30% match. In this round, Humboldt and Lyon counties contributed an in-kind match, which is also listed here. The state amount awarded in round 1 was $341,797. And the total of the match was $87,527 for a total of $423,252 in benefits to these counties. All 3 of the awarded recipients in this round will be making presentations about their programs later in the meeting. We'll move on to rounds 3 and 4, which was April 27th through May 24th. In round 3, 2 applications were received, but one of those applications did not move on to the peer review committee for review. We were not going to convene a PRC for just one application, so the remaining application from round 3 was moved into round 4. The round 4 peer review committee had 5 applications to review, and the committee chose 4 applications for funding. 3 of the applications selected were nonprofits, and 1 was a governmental entity. In Nye and Esmeralda counties, we had the Nevada Outreach Training Organization, or NOTO, which is a victim services nonprofit. In Mineral and Story counties, the grantee is Community Trust Incorporated, which operates in 2 counties. And then finally, the Las Vegas Municipal Court in Clark County. The total state amount rewarded was $309,804, and the match amount was just over $43,000 from Clark County, for a total of $353,000 in benefits to these counties. I would like to mention that the $43,000 match that was made by the city of Las Vegas was a cash match, which is, and it was not an in-kind match. Cash matches are very rare, so this was an extra benefit to our target population for Clark County. The grant recipient from Nye and Esmeralda County, NOTO, will be our 4th presenter later in this meeting. May 25th through June 7th was round 5, and 4 applicants were received, with 1 application not moving on to the peer review committee. So of the 3 applications that were reviewed, only 1 was selected for funding, and that was the Carson City Justice and Municipal Courts in Carson City. This grant award was $81,986 from state funds and $26,832 in match, for a total of $108,818. Finally, June 8th through June 25th was round 6. 6 applications were received, and they all moved forward to the peer review committee. The PRC selected these 3 applicants for funding. 2 grantees were nonprofits, and 1 was a governmental entity. In descending order, the first Clark County recipient was the Foundation for an Independent Tomorrow, or FIT. In Washoe County, the grantee was Ridge House Incorporated. And finally, in Clark County again, the city of North Las Vegas was the final grantee. In this round, the remaining $2,266,413 was awarded, along with $136,461 in matching funds, for a total award to these counties of $2,402,874. When all of this is totaled together, the funding distribution for Nevada Local Justice Reinvestment Grant looks like this. 7 rural counties received 21% of the funds, or $632,000, $837 from the $3 million that was available. Washoe County received 26%, and Clark County received 53%. So this ends our broad overview of the grant funds. So this next section is going to be an executive summary, but also a deeper dive into what was funded. I want to note that there are 2 sides to any grant award. There's the fiscal side, which is what we are going to be covering today. And there is the programmatic side, for example, how many people were assisted. And we will cover the programmatic side of all grants in the next meeting. So on the fiscal side, the 2 biggest categories to receive funding were personnel costs at $1,111,987. This category is for staff at each of the 11 organizations that received state grant funding. The second biggest funding category was contractual and consultants at $1,747,933. Then in descending order, We've got indirect funds at 62,000, supplies and operating at 41,460. Travel got just over 26,000, and staff training at 10,255. So just like peeling back an onion, let's go one level deeper. Here's an even closer look at the personnel section, which totaled 101,111,987. The good news here is that the largest portion of the personnel funding was $398,612, paying for community health workers, therapists, counselors, and case managers. An additionally large amount of money, $268,800, was for peer recovery support specialists. When these two lines are combined together and the associated tax and fringe benefits are also included, these services amount to $805,196, which is 72% of the personnel and fringe funding category. These staff members are providing direct services to our target population. Our second biggest category was contractual and consultants, and the category have been broken into two sections. So the top or light gray section is additional funding for personnel, while the dark gray bottom part is direct services to our target population. And there's more good news. In the top portion, this $155,000 paid for an addition more counseling and therapists, while $99,840 went to an additional resource for peer recovery support specialists. So these two lines added together is $255,446, leaving just over $42,000 for the remaining light items, which are executive directors, suicide prevention training, and personnel for technical assistance and program evaluation. Now to the bottom part. So these top three lines in the bottom represent services like local pharmacies, staff who provide transportation for clients, and then in the direct services for reentry, we have things like clothing, birth certificates, phone cards, and identification cards for our population in reentry. The really exciting stuff is at the bottom of this section, $146,750 toward mental health housing for folks needing acute attention, $120,965 for housing assistance, which is primarily in the form of rent, $139,800, which is going towards supportive services like childcare, and then finally, $1,018,279 is to directly pay for training and tuition for people in reentry or as a diversion from recidivism. The remaining sections of our deeper dive we'll just touch briefly. So the travel section and the other training section here are for staff at the funded organizations. Here we have 8 staff members attending conferences and trainings out of state. The grant funds are paying for their travel and registration expenses to go to those events. Grant funds are also being used for in-state travel to meet with clients who may be in crisis at their homes. Under supplies and operating, we had grantees request assistance with mental health screening supplies along with drug testing supplies. And then organizations also requested to purchase everything from toilet paper to new computers, office supplies, and filing cabinets. That all came to $30,605 across 11 organizations for a total in this category of $41,460. Our final deep dive category is indirect costs. So 5 of our grant recipients included indirect costs with their applications. These costs are generally a percentage of their operating expenses, and this category came to just over $62,000. So that wraps up the financial part of this reporting. So when it comes to future reporting, as I mentioned for this meeting, we were just focusing on the financial portions of the applications. And the next meeting, we will focus on the programmatic outcomes that the grant recipients plan to achieve and how they will have an impact on reentry and recidivism in their communities. We also want to take a deep dive into the applications that were rejected and what went wrong. I should mention we received 20 applications in all for a total in funding requests of over $9 million. So clearly the peer review committees had to drastically cut more than $6 million to get the requests that we received down to the $3 million that was available. Still, there are some interesting applications and opportunities the council may want to consider in the future. We also want to look at the future of this funding and apply lessons learned from the applications. And we want to do a look at the peer review process and make sure that was working well for us. Finally, NDSP will continue to report on the progress being made by the class of 2024 grant recipients. And our next meeting will also include more presentations from these recipients. The council would not be seeing this presentation today if it was not for the work of the peer review committee. There were 4 committees in all, and their work was meant to be anonymous, but I checked with everyone to see if they were okay with us thanking them in an alphabetical order. So the peer review committee members from the council were Denny Bird, Brenda Ingram, Chelsea Maza, Julia Murray, and Georgia Powers. We had 3 additional council members who wished to remain anonymous. We also had 2 people out from outside of the council. They were an undersheriff in a rural county and a planning specialist with the Nevada Department of Corrections. Thank you so much for everyone's help. We could not have done this without your expertise and participation. And that concludes my presentation, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much, Marie. As she said, is there any questions at this time that we can answer or address? Hearing none, I will close this agenda item. Moving on to agenda item number 5. I will now open it. Now that we have heard about the process and the outcome, we are pleased to welcome 4 of the NLJR grant recipient programs for overviews of their program and goals for their funding. First, we will hear from the Humboldt County Human Services Reentry Services for Humboldt County, and that would be myself. So I'm going to share a little bit about our program and how we got to where we did and why we requested the funding. We were very honored to be offered some of the grant funding. When I first started this process and being a part of this committee, I had just come creating a pretrial services supervision program that came with me under my human services umbrella, and therefore there was a lot of flow of people. And one of the things that I saw that I couldn't assist in the way that I have them end up back in the criminal system. And that was folks that had either been incarcerated for an extensive period of time in the jail, or they were returning back to our community from a prison sentence. And the last thing I wanted them to do was to come back from their stay and then just start back into the criminal justice system again, because then I was dealing with them on the pretrial side. And I had limitations within the funding of what I could do to help somebody that's in an indigent state. And so when this grant fund became available, I thought it would be a great opportunity to try to target the population that was reentering our community to help them get their feet under them with a roof over their head, help them get their documents that they needed in order to get a job and get stabilized in order to then send them off into the community to try to do differently and maintain staying out of the criminal justice system. So that's where the vision came from. I already have staff in my department that deals with the populations, whether we can help them or not. And so I did not have to ask for any personnel. But our goal was that when these individuals came in, and ironically, before the grant award was announced, the week before that, I had a lady come into my office that fit the description of what I was looking for. And all I could offer her was a clothing voucher at that time so that she could try to get a job. So with that being said, now that we do have funding, she's come back into the office and we've been able to house her. We gave her a month at a time to some of the housing funds were pretty gracious in this grant. And so that's one of the hardest things in our community is housing. We don't have many options for safe, sober housing. And so it's a very big challenge. But I was able to look at her and say, I will pay for a month's worth of rent. Will you try to get a job and do some of these other things? And then I can assess it as she goes through the process to see if she's still committed to what she's trying to do and staying on the right track. One of the things that we wrote in as part of our match was to be able to drug test them. I think accountability, if you're going to help someone at this level, holding them accountable to doing their part is a big part of that. I already drug test up my pretrial population, and so that was a service that I could incorporate into the accountability part for this population as well. Some of the other things is a lot of them don't have a phone, and in order to look for a job, you almost have to have a phone or access to them being able to reach you. And so phone cards are something that we want to be able to provide to people. A lot of that come without an ID or their social security card or a birth certificate. And so they're starting from scratch. So we expect them to come back and be contributing members of society, but they don't have a way to get any of those documents. So those are things that we will also assist them with. Work clothing, a lot of them when they left come back and have nothing if they don't have family that stored or kept anything from them. Our community is really bad about taking advantage of each other when somebody else is in jail. So they come out and don't have much. So that's the other area we will help them with. Right now, we're just kind of getting started with this. And so right now we only have 2 individuals that I'm working with. One has been but they've both been given housing help, and a phone card was given to one. And so we're just kind of getting started and being able to assist these individuals. The hope is that if we can house them and give them that basic need, that will help them get situated enough to get the job and become a contributing member of society. So that will be part of the data tracking that we're really looking at, is if that's a benefit to this population. That's kind of where we're at with the program. I'm sure in a couple of months, there'll be some twists to it or things that we've had to adjust and change. But right now, that's where we're headed. So I would be happy to answer any questions anyone may have for me.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Dean Mardall.
Yes.
Well, and then things went dead again.
We can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you, Dimar. Is it me he can't hear? Georgia, do you want to see if he can hear you?
Mr. Dahl, can you hear me at this time?
There, I can hear you. Yes. Okay. It's been cutting out. It goes out and in and out. Can you see me?
We cannot see you. We can hear you though.
Okay, why can't you see me?
Do you want to try? Do you have a question for me, Mr. Dahl, since we can hear you?
Mr. Dahl, can you hear Chair Bird or can you only hear me? He may just be
Are
having
you,
difficulties.
okay, I wasn't sure if it was my internet or his, because we have a lot of internet issues in my office. Have you been able to hear me okay, Georgia?
You were glitching in the beginning, but then it all cleared up.
Okay. Well, if he comes back, I will be happy to entertain any questions he may have.
Now you're frozen, Chair.
Does anybody else have questions while we wait for him to get connected?
You were
Darn it.
glitching again, Chair. I don't know if maybe we should
Now
try
can you hear me?
without the video.
Okay, we'll try this. Hearing no other questions, if Mr. Dahl comes back, I'm happy to answer questions if he has one. If not, I'm gonna go ahead and move on, and we're gonna hear from Lyon County Human Services about their reentry support. So I'd ask Shayla Holmes to present, please.
You'd think I'd have unmute figured out by now. Hello, Shayla Holmes, Director, Lyon County Human Services for the record. I'm going to share my screen. Similar to Miss Bird, I figured I would share where we've been with our program thus far so you can understand why our request to expand from you guys came from. Are you guys seeing it? Hopefully so.
Yes.
Yes, I could see it.
Fabulous. Okay. So we're going to start with a quick history of Lyon County's Forensic Assessment Services Triage Team. We call it lovingly FAST. This is the services we provide within the jail in regards to reentry. It spawned from a 2014 training and capacity building grant that we received where SAMHSA Game Center came out and did a sequential intercept mapping, facilitated sequential intercept mapping for all of Lyon County. It was several stakeholders from both the human services, our politicians, our commissioners, our district attorney, and our sheriff at the time. And FAST was born out of that sequential intercept mapping session. So we were touching on the model intercepts 3 and 4. So really focusing on when they come into jail and what that reentry into the community piece looks like. I'm preaching to the choir, I believe, but really what this has come from is that individuals with behavioral health challenges are at a much higher risk of recidivism and cycling back through the system over and over again without ever actually having their needs met. So we wanted to be able to intervene and put a wrench in that cycle at that reentry point to get them connected to the right services to ensure they don't come back. This was a regional effort. So our regional behavioral health coordinator at the time was Miss Jessica Flood, and she was able to work to get this implemented in a variety of different fashions. We all do it a little different, but within the northern region, which is Lyon, Douglas, Carson City, Story, and Churchill. Our regional behavioral health coordinator now, Sherilyn Roarwood, is also fantastic and has continued the mission to ensure that we get consistent. She's working on a forensic assessment services triage team handbook. So what this looks like in Lyon County is it's focused on identifying criminogenic risk and conducting an evidence-based assessment, which then leads to a reentry plan tailored to that individual. Just a quick touch on the criminogenic risk, because not all individuals have that background. A lot of times we go back and forth between criminogenic model or a medical model. We utilize a criminogenic model. So we're looking at dynamic risk factors that have been shown through research to prevent an individual from not recidivating. And there's also the responsivity, which is tied to that, which are different barriers to treatment. Things such as their intelligence, reading ability, social barriers, childcare, and being able to identify both their criminogenic risk and their responsivity allows our case managers and our FAST team to be able to tailor a plan really specific to that individual to prevent them from coming back in through the justice system. For that, we utilize the evidence-based assessment tool, the ORAS, which is the Ohio Risk Assessment System. There's, I want to say, 6 or 7 different assessments to choose from. We utilize the community supervision screening tool. That's a quick 5 to 10 minute tool that allows you to identify low, moderate, or high risk as far as criminogenic and responsivity issues. And then for individuals that rank moderate to high, we then do the complete community screening tool, which is the CST. And that takes about 45 to 60 minutes to complete for an individual. And that's where you get that full picture as far as what we need to address in a reentry plan. It was in the fiscal year 2021 that we shifted from a panel model. When we first launched in 2016, we were limited in our capacity. We brought in partners from our substance misuse treatment facility, from our mental health partners. We had Lyon County Human Services at the table. We had Veteran Services at the table. It was a panel of 5 to 6 professionals sitting in the room as inmates were brought in to meet with the panel to go through the full CST. We found that we were limited in our ability to reach the full population that could benefit from those services by having that model. So what we did was we made a shift in 2021, and we shifted to a model where we have a community health worker and a case manager. So a community health worker does that quick 5 to 10 minute CSST, identifies if that individual is going to be moderate to high, and then the case manager does the full moderate to high. And then we have a certified alcohol and drug counselor, part of the team, who's able to do a full substance use assessment if that is an issue identified from the CST. That significantly increased the number of individuals we were able to see, the number of individuals we were able to assess and complete those full reentry plans for. Just a quick side note, as far as a community health worker, they're a lower level certified professional who is able to serve as a liaison between social services and the community. I apologize for my background noise. It will stop in a moment. But community health workers are highly trained and understand the services available within their community, where these individuals are reentering to, which is critical for being able to get them connected to the right service for their issue. So the services that we provide currently, prior to funding through the council, was the ORAS is completed. Then we also offer evidence-informed groups from the University of Cincinnati Criminal Institute, where cognitive behavioral therapy is the foundation for those groups for change. We also have those drug and alcohol assessments, and then connection to treatment and services upon reentry. A critical thing to note is that evidence and research has shown that if you provide services to an individual who is not moderate or high on those risk assessments, you're potentially actually doing more harm. So for individuals that are low on their criminogenic risk and responsivity, we only provide them a list of community resources. We don't want them to leave empty-handed. We want them to have some support, but we leave it up to them to advocate for themselves and continue on in the community. It's the individuals that are moderate to high that get the full reentry plan, which is why we've been able to really reduce the number of clinical professionals on the panel, utilize lower level professionals to be able to see a higher number of people and do more good, get better outcomes. So on that note, what the outcomes that we've seen thus far. So you can see in 16-17, when we first launched, we saw 123, and really between 123 and 145, that was when we were utilizing that panel approach. So switching to the lower level professionals, we were able to almost double. Well, now that you see in 23-24, we have doubled the amount of individuals that we've been able to see and assist and serve. Through this time, and I think this is perhaps something that's on your guys' radar, it's something that's on our radar. I serve on several other boards and committees where we talk about defining recidivism. And that's, for some reason, actually really complicated. Sounds simple, but it's a complicated issue. And when it comes to our forensic assessment services triage teams, it's really important that we figure that out so that we can actually prove our outcomes. So all of these years, 16 through 23-24, recidivism is actually only based upon individuals returning into the FAST program in Lyon County within that year. And when we first started in 16-17, we had an 82% success rate. 23-24, we've made it up to 87% success rate. So tiny chips off the block, but we've steadily increased our ability to reduce recidivism when using that very narrow definition of within the same year to our jail. What we know as a region is that individuals typically get arrested or rearrest or reoffend regionally. So we don't have any way of knowing if somebody's been arrested in Douglas County versus Lyon County. It's something that we're working on a few different levels, and something that we're making some recommendations for through the substance use working group with the Attorney General's office as well. So we need to get better at defining recidivism, and that way these programs can actually show better outcomes or know a better idea as far as if we're making the true bigger impact that we're hoping for. So we're going to hop into what we're utilizing the reinvestment dollars for, which is super exciting for us, because one thing that we've have not had the funding to be able to do is post jail exit. So once somebody actually re-enters into the community, our FAST team services stop. We can make that service plan, and then we release them into the community in hopes that they get connected. We do warm handoffs, we set up treatment beds, but from there we lose them. And so what we've been able to do, or what we're excited to be able to do, because our award was fully executed July 1st. So we haven't done much yet. We're working on getting our subcontractor for our peer support specialists signed and approved now. But one thing that we're going to be instituting is peer recovery support specialists upon reentry. So they're going to, these low-level professionals, the PRSSs, are going to be able to meet with individuals that are identified as having substance use or mental illness as a need for on reentry. And these individuals will be able to meet them while they're in jail, most likely via telephonically or telehealth or Zoom. Create that relationship while they're incarcerated, and then upon reentry, be able to connect with them and help them actually make that service plan happen and reduce those barriers. Peer support recovery specialists are individuals that have lived experience from substance use, problem gambling, mental health, and or co-occurring challenges. Many of these individuals have experienced incarceration themselves, and so understand what that looks like on the road to recovery, and are really able to help see individuals through to success. So we are hopeful that these are going to really kickstart those outcomes from the high 80s to hopefully the 90s in regards to recidivism when using that 1-year definition. The other piece of that is that we're also, some of the funding was provided for us to be able to house folks temporarily, because one thing that we see are individuals being released and their treatment bed not ready yet. So if they're at the need for having inpatient services, we're not able to just seamlessly get everybody from jail exit to treatment facility. There's typically a time in between. And we know that when an individual leaves incarceration and goes back to their prior environment, we're more likely to lose them. So if we're able to house them temporarily, where their peer can check in on them daily until their treatment bed is ready, then we're able to hopefully have better success as far as them actually going into that treatment facility and then being successful with it. Future expansion dreams, always thinking of the future. One piece that is missing as well from our forensic assessment services triage teams is the mental health supports while incarcerated. So we do have some jail medical staff. We don't do full mental health examinations for individuals, and we're not able to provide that clinical level support for folks while they're incarcerated. And we would love to be able to get to that point. But the missing piece for this program for a very long time has been services upon reentry. And so that's what we were really excited to get started with in regards to the funding from the council. So with that, I am open to any questions. And again, we're very appreciative of this funding opportunity.
Thank you so much, Shayla. So much of that makes sense and gives me more ideas.
Sorry, CJ Zen's Knight County. I just had a couple of questions for you, Shayla, if I may.
Yeah.
So my background is in mental health, and I'm very interested in the programming that you put together. And I guess just a couple of questions. The first is, using CADCs for your drug and alcohol assessments, but I'm curious if you at least have an LADC that's overseeing your CADCs.
We do not have an LDAC at this time. Our KDAC is through a partnership with Healthy Communities Coalition. And so they are contracted, they're not in-house, but I do not have an LDAC at this time.
Is that a plan for the future for you guys?
Potentially expansion. There's so many different ways of which we can continue to better enhance this program and expand it. The KDAC was a newer addition about 2 years ago with CASAP funding that we were able to infuse into the program. But yes, absolutely.
Okay. I only asked just, I mean, at a very minimum from a liability standpoint, not, to not be able to have an LADC oversee at least just a supervisory role, for your own protection. And then for your peer support specialists, I'm familiar with the service, and I'm wondering if you have somebody, a direct supervisor for them that they report to or do case management with.
So we're contracting for the peers. We haven't hired them yet, but that is what we're able to do with the funding that has been provided by the council. And I do have in-house a licensed clinical professional counselor who just recently went and got his peer certification or peer supervisor certification completed. Excuse me. So awesome. Yes, I do now have that, and I'm very excited to have that prior to having the peers on board.
Great. All right. That's great news. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Shayla? All right. Again, thank you very much, Shayla. That was great information. And like I said, has given me ideas. All right. Our next presentation is going to be from Nevada Outreach Training Organizations, NOTO for short, not to abuse. And Kathy McKenna is going to be our speaker. So Kathy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. So Kathy McKenna, Nevada Outreach. I'm not sure how many people know of Nevada Outreach. We have been in existence since 1995. So we've been doing this close to 30 years now. It started out as No to Abuse, which is now a program under Nevada Outreach. The other program that we actually also offer, which isn't under this funding, but just so you know, is a family resource center. And so we work a lot with those that need a hand up that are impoverished in our community as well. But we were funded under the domestic violence portion of this grant. And so that is what our No to Abuse program actually is. It's our domestic violence program. So under there, we help those that have been victims/survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, trafficking. And then we also, under that same program, have the Children's Advocacy Center located at our facility as well, where we do forensic interviews for children who are under the age of 18 who have been either sexually abused and or criminally physically abused. And so to start with the No to Abuse program, we will see roughly 175 individuals in a calendar year. A lot of times it will start with a hotline call, which our hotline is available 24/7. It could mean that we meet in the field and actually pick up that victim and take them to Las Vegas for a SANE exam, which is a sexual assault exam. Sadly, we do not have a facility yet in Nye County that will provide those services. And for our No to Abuse program, we do serve all of Nye and Esmeralda counties. So if we get a call in Tonopah, which we do have an office in Tonopah, that usually means a 3+ hour drive from Tonopah to Las Vegas for an actual SANE exam. So if and when that all happens, we start working with that client for a case plan. So we do our best to stabilize those individuals. That individual will sit down with an advocate and they actually will work together on their goals of what they want to accomplish. Sadly, not everyone leaves their abuser. It's tough. There are a variety of reasons why victims will not leave their abusers, but it does happen. We, of course, support them in what their decision actually is. Sometimes we also are required to do emergency shelter. We have an extremely small shelter. It has 8 beds, so I don't really know if we can call it an emergency shelter. But it is a place that we can temporarily place those individuals who have experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, that need to be away and does not have a safe place to actually be without going back home to their abusers. Sometimes there are family or friends here in the community, but what we find a lot of times is individuals have been brought here because they do not have family or friends. And so there is nobody here to actually support that victim and what they're going through. So we work with those individuals very closely, as I said, with a case plan. We provide stability services for them for housing. So if housing is a problem, we will do what we can to actually get them a voucher for housing if that's what is necessary. A lot of times our victims have not had jobs for years. So we will work with a local resource that provides workforce development. Through our Family Resource Center, we can also provide them with things like clothing. A lot of these victims and their families, children, leave the home and they leave everything. Kind of like Chairperson Byrd mentioned, they leave with nothing. They might not have birth certificates, driver's license, social security cards. So we do work hand in hand with our Family Resource Center to provide whatever they need to get them back on their feet to be sustainable so that they can get a job. So we do work with getting all those necessary ID documents. Transportation is one of our largest problems here in Nye County. We do have a transportation service that is very limited, and a lot of these victims are leaving without a vehicle. So we do find that there's quite a bit of transportation assistance needed, whether it be our Front Valley Transportation getting rides that way. They will also pick them up and take them to court. They'll take them to doctor's appointments, whatever we need to do to get them stabilized. So in these situations as well, a lot of times there needs to be a temporary protection order put against the perpetrator. So we work with those victims through the online help for them to be able to fill out those required documents and then take them to court so they can file them. And the advocate actually will go with them. In many cases, there is a case that is brought against the perpetrator. If there is a case that is, our advocates will go with them to court. They are their support system. We do have a domestic violence support group that meets weekly. It fluctuates and changes. We have new faces come in. We'll even have old faces who've been away for a while that come back. A lot of them with success stories to encourage those individuals who have just recently left that, hey, yeah, you can do this, hang in there and keep it going. We work with them closely with budgeting. A lot of times because they don't have jobs, they also don't have budgeting skills. So we work with them on budgeting skills as well. So although we see roughly 175 new clients a year, we see there's about another 175, 200 people that are ongoing from previous years that we're also helping. We do not close our case till the client decides that they no longer need our assistance. So we've had some that have been with us for over 2 years, still maybe coming in for support group, maybe coming in for budgeting assistance again, because they get out in the real world and then too many credit cards, they end up needing help again to, hey, can you help me get my budget back on straight? Maybe they've lost their housing for some reason. Maybe they've lost a job. So we provide that support to our clients until our clients decide they no longer need assistance from us. So there's not, we also provide a lot of resources. We do find that a lot of times there's mental health issues as well as substance abuse issues that the family has experienced due to the trauma that they have received. So we do our best to be able to provide those resources, as well as we try to help them with finding a legal attorney if there is a case of divorce or maybe custody with the actual perpetrator as well. We'll help with medical services. A lot of times after a domestic violence assault or a sexual assault, they are in need of medical services. So we help them with those as well. And there may also be, they may also require assistance with getting VOCA assistance, so victim of crime reimbursement, whether it be for mental health services or gas to get to and from, because this is a traumatic time. So we do find that the victims could spend a lot of time not having to take off from work to be able to go to doctor's appointments, visiting the attorney, mental health. And so we try to help them with that as well. On the children's side, because this grant is allowing us, primarily it is our staffing, which is great. So it pays for 10% of our supervisor and 2 of our domestic violence advocates, as well as our child and family advocate that works with the Nye County Children's Advocacy Center. So that's another one that a lot of times it'll start in the middle of the night. We do have a 24/7 hotline for the Children's Advocacy Center, which is separate from the domestic violence. So we do have 2 hotlines that we actually run. They may go directly to the scene. If it's something that's happened, they may show up and go directly to that person's home, if that's required, or wherever that child and family may be. If required, a SANE exam may be required with that child as well. With them, we have acute exams and not acute exams. Acute exams are immediate. If it's just happened, we want to try to get that child to see a SANE exam as soon as possible, to collect any forensic interview evidence that there may be. We will also try to do a forensic interview as rapidly as possible because our children's minds are much different than ours. And so 4 days in a child's life is a long time ago. So trying to have them recall what actually happened or occurred to them, we sadly try to get that as soon as possible because they do forget. And it's just part of children. So we do have an MDT team that is comprised of DCFS, the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney's Office, and then we have our forensic interviewer and our child and family advocate. And so we work as a multidisciplinary team to work on these cases. When they interview the child, we have forensic interview equipment that records. Used to be that it was on DVDs that could get lost. We've actually had them lost so that when it went to trial, they didn't have any evidence of the forensic interview. So now we actually, all that is stored in the cloud securely, which allows them to also have the ability to each different group in the MDT can actually reach out and look at that video. So if the Sheriff's Department is still investigating, they'll be able to see it. If it's the DA it's now been turned over to the DA can watch that. They can also send it to the defense attorneys if there is a case that's going to be prosecuted. So our advocate plays roughly the same role that our domestic violence advocates do as well. So they provide a lot of resources, a lot of therapy resources for here. We do not have a lot of therapists in Nye County that actually deal directly with children who have been sexually abused. Some of those children do end up going to Las Vegas if it is severe enough that they need a specialty therapist. But a lot of them do see therapists here in Pahrump. We also will help them with assistance as far as funding for transportation. They may need money to help them with transportation to go to medical doctors, to go to the therapist. So we'll help provide them with transportation vouchers to get to and from. Though the child and family advocate also will stay with this case throughout because they actually develop the relationship with the child. And so when it's time to go to court, they know that person, they have a trust in that person. And so they will actually attend court with the child. Our judges here in Nye County do allow the advocate to actually sit with the child on the stand if that's something that they want, if the child asks for it. So our judges in our court system have been very lenient when children do have to testify in these cases. But we will also, the child and family advocate will do the exact same as far as if we need a TPO or an EPO against the perpetrator. Sadly, in most of these cases, it is a family member or friend. It's not a stranger. And so that creates even more problems because a lot of times if it is a parent, we do have to remove those children from the home. There may or may not be DCFS involvement, and that's one of the things they look at when they are doing the forensic interview is, are we seeing that parent is protecting that child or not? And if not, DCFS will look to remove those children actually from the home. We see roughly 100 to 120 children a year for forensic interviews, sadly. And we deal with about ongoing, usually 125 family units in a year. Sometimes we have seen where we do have multiple children in a household. We also find that these cases do take a while. We have some cases that have lasted so long that the child is no longer a child. They're actually now an adult over 18 before the cases are actually prosecuted. So it is a little frustrating to see sometimes in the court system, it does take a while, But that's why our advocates keep touch with those children until that court case is done. So there's some kids that we'll have on for 4, 5, 6, 7 years before their case comes about. And so our job is to help keep a touch point on that child, keep that relationship going. So if the court system does decide to have them testify, that it's not going to be a stranger that is sitting there working with that child. So this grant was very helpful in helping to pay for those staff members that work with both adults and children. We have seen, probably like most nonprofits, that a lot of our major grants, such as VOCA, such as marriage license, that help pay for these services, have declined through the years. And so these funds allow us to continue having an adequate caseload to hopefully to be able to handle it. We could probably use double the staff because it seems like our office is fairly busy, but we do with what we can. And as I said, we have offices both in Tonopah and Pahrump, and we do serve all of Esmeralda County. We also have an MOU with Lincoln County, which we also help them should they need any help when it comes to forensic interviews, or if they need any help with their domestic violence victims. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much, Kathy. Any questions for Kathy? Oh, Marie has one. She's got her hand up.
Hi, Miss McKenna.
Hi.
It's great to meet you. We've been working together, of course, on getting these grant funds out.
We have.
One thing I wanted to mention and highlight is that your forensic interviews are recorded, as you'd mentioned. And so some of the grant funds are being used to upgrade that equipment.
Yes.
Is that still on track? Great.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to point out to the group that these interviews that are done on video, one of the exciting things from your grant application was that children especially only have to do the interview once. And so I just wanted to highlight that because I thought that was really quite striking, and I appreciated that.
It's very, children, people will, or actually attorneys, when they're actually trying to cross-examine a child may remember something that they had forgotten or forgot something they remembered. I mean, that's just part of a child's brain. And so the attorneys will look and say, oh, see, he's not reliable. This way, when we do the interview, that child no longer has to do that over again. And it makes such a difference in that child, a huge difference. Plus, we have the ability to control the access of that child's interview so that no one happens to come across the a DVD and see a child's interview on it, which has happened before. And that was one of the strong suits for us to be able to get that equipment.
Great. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Any more questions for Kathy? All right, thank you. We're going to move on to our
Thank you.
final.
We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. We will move on to our final speaker today, and FAST program expansion is what she's going to share with us today. Daria, it's your turn to speak.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. My name is Daria Singer, and I am the Executive Director of Partnership Douglas County, for the record, and we serve Douglas County, Nevada. Our agency is one of 10 local substance use prevention coalitions, and our mission is to connect a healthy community through education and resource connection. So our primary role is doing prevention within our schools and our community, and then we also support additional programs such as MOST and FAST. So I'm going to talk about the FAST program first, since Dr. Shayla Holmes actually just shared a lot about FAST, so it's fresh in your mind. We run the program very similarly here in Douglas County. Our FAST program began a little after Shayla's in 2017, using the exact same response need the R&R model, I apologize. And we are serving our Douglas County jail population. We do have a substation up in Lake Tahoe where we also have a jail, but we typically only see 1 to 2 individuals in that jail at a given time. So we focus a majority of our efforts down at our substation in Carson Valley. With our FAST program, it is voluntary. And so we work with anyone that is interested in the program. And typically what we do is our contractor will go in and we'll see who our new bookings are. From there, bring them in, interview them, see if they're interested in being a part of the program. And if not, we still offer to connect them to services. And that is what this grant is supporting. Under our FAST funding we have through the state of Nevada, which is liquor tax dollars, we are only working with our high-risk offenders that are eligible and wanting to be in the program. With this money, we are able to work with our low risk and connect all of them to services. So what we found is by not working with our low risk offenders, we are seeing them over time elevating their risk factors and reoffending and coming back into our jail. So by trying to address it early on, we're hoping to combat a good chunk of that. Similar to Shayla's program, we also started out with a large panel of individuals that would go in and interview potentially only 1 to 2 inmates at a time. And looking at that, we were not as effective as we could have been. It spent a lot of time. It was really hard to be effective. And each member of the team had to get approved by the jail prior to going in. So now we have 2 individuals that go in. We have our contractor through Community Counseling Center. They're based in Carson City and are a community behavioral health center, but they also provide services to Douglas County. And then we have someone from Douglas County Social Services go in as well. When we meet with our individuals, we use the exact same tools, the community service tool, the CST, the CSST. We do the brief jail mental health screen and then identify what their needs are. If they are on the low risk side, we will connect them to social services and our partner there will work with them to make sure they have all the services they need prior to release. Some similar barriers to Lyon County is once they are released from our jail, it is very hard to do any follow-up with them. The only ones we've been able to do some level of follow-up are those that actually go to social services to continue on with their case plan, or those that go to Community Counseling Center if they were going to be connected to them for drug and alcohol counseling or mental health counseling. Outside of that, it's really hard to keep track of everyone, so we're hoping that over time, as we grow this program, we'll be able to see a greater reduction in recidivism. Douglas County is also unique because we have Lake Tahoe, and so we have a lot of individuals that get arrested in Tahoe that are not from the state of Nevada. So kind of unique when they're in our jail. If they are not local to state of Nevada, or if they're an arrestee from Nevada Department of Public Safety, so Nevada Highway Patrol, or through the Washoe tribe, they're eligible to get connected to services, but we may not make them a FAST client because typically they're going to be brought into Washoe County or be going to tribal court. So that's a little bit about our FAST team and what we're hoping to expand on through this funding. And our other program is our MOST team, which is the Mobile Outreach Safety Team. MOST was founded in Douglas County in 2016 after the IHOP shooting in Carson City and after Carson City created their MOST team. Our team is a licensed clinician, so we have a marriage and family therapist, we have a clinical social worker, and we have an LDAC. So we have 3 different ones that will rotate on our team. And then we also have a deputy that is trained in crisis intervention training. Their primary goal is to do that diversion and deflection. So make sure that they're reaching those individuals prior to them going to the hospital or getting arrested and divert them to other services. Douglas County, we have an aging population, and we have seen that over the last couple of years, over 33% of our population is 65 years or older. And so we are seeing an increase in dementia, and that is not something our MOST team works on. If they get a call for a dementia-related incident, they will connect them to Department of Aging and Disability Services. So when I wrote the proposal for MOST, we're looking at adding another clinician onto our team. We originally started just 1 day a week in 2016, expanded to 2 days a week in 2020, and are hoping to move towards 5 days, maintaining those 5 days, and eventually move to a 24/7 system. We may not be able to do multiple teams like Carson City or Washoe County does, but we're hoping we'll be able to build an on-call system so that a clinician can be called out and go with the deputy that is trained in crisis intervention training, CIT, and be able to act as a mini MOST team until the regular MOST clinician is back on time. With that, we have seen an increase in calls. In the proposal I wrote in fiscal year 23, we saw 968 calls for service for our MOST team. At the end of fiscal year 24, we saw 750, which sounds like a decrease, but it was actually an increase because we looked at our calls in 23 and we saw that a lot of them were relating to dementia. And so instead of no longer addressing those dementia calls and connecting them to services, we're able to work more with our individuals experiencing a mental health or substance use related crisis. With this funding, we also are looking at partnering with our local suicide prevention network agency and having them go into our jail and provide some clinical therapy sessions for our inmates. In Douglas County, we've had 3 suicides to date, which is the lowest we've had in a period of time. Last time this year, we averaged 11, and we see it primarily with our male population in their 40s to 60s. Being in jail is really hard, and so we want to make sure that we can have someone going in that is not, part of the jail staff that can offer them some tips and coping strategies while they're in there. So we're excited to be able to bring that to our jail through this grant funding. And that is all I have at the moment. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Daria. That's great.
Thank you.
Any questions for Daria? All right, hearing none, that concludes our presentation, so we will now close this agenda item. I will now open agenda item number 6. The dates for the meetings for the rest of the year are provided in the agenda. Our next meeting will be October 16th, 2024 at 1:30. When you do get the meeting invite, again, if you could please confirm your attendance or not, and so that Georgia and them can follow if we'll have a quorum or not. That is really important. Our staff is already working on more topics and items for the discussion of the future meetings. Marie shared some of those today, but does anyone have anything they want to be considered for future meetings? Hearing none, if you think of anything that you would like to be considered for an agenda or for a future meeting, please contact myself or Director Prowers. We'll be happy to consider that and look at seeing how we can accommodate. All right, I will now open the second period of public comment. Just as we did during the first period of public comment, those who wish to testify may do so by telephone. Due to time constraints, public comment will be limited to 2 minutes. Any member of the public that exceeds the 2 minutes may submit their testimony in writing to the Department of Sentencing Policy at sentencingpolicy@ndsp.nv.gov. At this time, I will ask staff to manage and direct those who wish to testify. Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Members of the public who would like to testify by phone, press star 9 to raise your hand. When it's your turn to speak, press star 6 to unmute. Then please slowly state and spell your first and last name. And we have no one who would like to participate in public comment.
All right, thank you, Hunter. That concludes our second part of public comment. Great work, everyone. Thank you to the staff and members of the council and our presenters. We have accomplished a lot today, and I look forward to seeing you in October to continue with our efforts. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.